Welcome to another episode of College Town Talk. I'm Jonathan Frank, and joining me once again today is my guest co-host and friend, Susan Luna-Hazlewood. Susan, welcome back.
Thank you, Jonathan. So excited to be here again.
Well, I'm glad you're here for week 2. We were talking last week about Week of Welcome activities, but just kind of looking past Week of Welcome, you all in the Crawford Alumni Center have a big event coming up on September 11th. Your Movies on the Quad event. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So we started this event last year. It was so this will be our second year. Our event specialist, Ray Lagore, came up with this idea. So this is all credit goes to her because she came up with it and she does everything for it. This year, it will be the movie we will be playing is The Parent Trap. We actually had a vote between The Parent Trap and Grease that we did on social media with students and alumni and the community, and The Parent Trap won. So if anyone has any complaints, it was a public vote. But so we're very excited to show The Parent Trap on the 11th. We are having kind of a pre-party at 6 o'clock. It is on Tech's Historic Quad. It is free, open to the public. We would love for the community and staff and alumni and students and parents. It is Family Parents Weekend. So we're hoping that some of the families will come to this event. And it's also Fall Fun Fest in Cookeville. So there's a lot going on in the community. People can go to different activities. But it is a very fun event. There are kids' activities. My daughter will be there. So it is just it's a very fun event, and I hope people will come out. Again, it is free, and everyone in the community is welcome.
Well, I love that it's a free event and that you, there was a democratic process.
Yes,
Everybody got to
yes.
vote. We were talking about that with our guest today before we started recording. I voted for The Parent Trap, so I am
Wonderful.
I'm very happy with the outcome of this election. But speaking of our guest, Susan, he is somebody who has devoted his career to both K-12 education and higher education right here in Putnam County.
That's right. Today, we have the opportunity to talk with Dr. Frank Tittle, a two-time Tennessee Tech graduate, now serving as Executive Director of Tennessee Tech Gear Up, the university's cutting-edge initiative to increase college and career readiness for students from underserved communities across the Upper Cumberland. Dr. Tittle has been a music teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, and even the director of admissions at Tennessee Tech before transitioning to his role today. Frank, welcome to College Town Talk.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a good to have an opportunity to talk about Tennessee Tech and especially about some of the work we're doing with students across the region. I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. Well, you have worn so many hats in this community, and for many of our listeners, you have been a big part of either their education or their kids' education, not to age you on that one. So I'd like to start by talking about your latest role, which is a continuation of that mission. You're now leading Tennessee Tech's Gear Up initiative, which is an acronym standing for Gaining Early Awareness and Readiness for Undergraduate Programs. This project is really powerful because it puts boots on the ground in local schools to start reaching and mentoring students beginning in middle school with the goal of keeping them on track to be able to attend college. What more can you tell us about Gear Up, and why was that something you wanted to help lead?
Yeah, no, great question there. I think for me, what really attracted me to Gear Up was just the starting point, being able to start with students a little bit younger. You know, when I was in admissions, our goal working with students was 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. That's kind of really when we got started. So being able to start with students in the 6th and 7th grade, which is what our cohort was beginning, and being able to follow that group all the way through until they're seniors in high school or first year of college was really intriguing to me. And just being able to build those relationships with students and with their families throughout that middle school and high school piece is truly what attracted me to that position. And then being able to work along with the team that I'm with now, we have 4 site coordinators, one in each of the counties. We're in Warren County, Overton County, Clay County, and Oneida Special School District. And just being able to have somebody in each one of those districts that works with all those students has been absolutely phenomenal over the last 2 years. You know, we've got people in our schools every day building relationships with students and families, and that's what's made this opportunity exciting. We're not just talking about making a difference. We actually get to be there with students and do the work.
Well, speaking of something that's making a difference, I want to pick up on Susan's question and talk a little bit more about Gear Up because, I mean, obviously all of us around this table believe that education is life changing for students, for the trajectory of their families. But you all helped change a local student's life in a more immediate way recently when you sent him and his mother to the Super Bowl earlier this year. And this was such a cool event. We in OCM got to kind of work with you and your team on this, and there was we have video that captured the student's reaction the moment he learned he'd be going to the big game. So tell us a little bit more about how that all came together.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I think Student Success Agency is the group we work with, and they're one of our vendors or our partners. And what they do is they have mentors that they provide who have been previously a part of a Gear Up program coming through middle school and high school. They're college students, and so they work with our students within the Gear Up program and just are able to mentor them, talk to them about any needs they might have, or they also do tutoring with them. So that's the agency that provided this opportunity for Eduardo and his mom. And again, it was a great opportunity there. And what they did was the students had to submit a video to SSA and just kind of talk about how their agent had supported them and how they had worked with them and provided them that little push, so to speak, to be able to progress forward in their educational journey. And so Eduardo made that video, submitted it. And funny thing about it was we have a monthly data meeting with SSA. I had no idea he had been selected. We have that monthly data meeting. So we go into that meeting that morning, and the CEO was there. And I was like, well, this is kind of odd that she's in here with us, but whatever. Here we go. And so they start talking about the data, and then they switch over to the Super Bowl competition piece. And then they say, by the way, one of your students was selected. And I just sat there in it's that realization moment of no way was one of our students selected out of a nationwide opportunity like this. So that became a thing for them, and just being able to see him and his mother have that opportunity to get out of the county where they're at and go experience something on that level that I knew would not have been possible without Student Success Agency was just a great opportunity. And I'll build on that a little bit for you. And I know we've not shared this, but at our national conference 2 weeks ago, Eduardo and his mom were actually flown there by SSA, and we didn't know it until we got there. And he actually kicked off the national conference and got to talk about his journey. And his agent was there, who is a student at University of Texas. So they both got to speak that morning. And there was 2,500 plus educators in that room. And he told us, he said, I'm a nervous wreck about going up here. And you could not tell it. Once he got in front of that audience, he was, very well spoken and right to the point on everything and did a great job. So this has been a stepping stone for him of a piece that just is going to change his trajectory over the next 4 years, and then hopefully the next 4 years after that while he's in college as well.
Wow. What an incredible story and an experience for that young man. That's what a wonderful opportunity.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. Well, pivoting a little bit, it is the start of the fall semester here at Tech, which brings up another one of your many roles over the years. Your time as Tennessee Tech's Director of Admissions. In that role, you were responsible for recruiting students to Tennessee Tech and overseeing who is ultimately admitted. So for our new freshmen and parents who may be listening, what would be your advice for how to have a successful first semester?
Great question. So, my biggest piece of advice is get involved in some way. Students who struggle sometimes aren't struggling because they can't do the academic work. That's not an issue. Sometimes it's just that they haven't found where they belong yet. So I would definitely say, just like next week is week of welcome, and then the College Town kickoff, get out there to those events. Somehow put yourself into those spaces as a student and just figure out what we have to offer. What support pieces are there for you? I would definitely figure that out pretty quick because those support pieces are not just going to help you during freshman year, but all 4 years that you're a student there. So go to class, meet your professors, find an organization, go to an event if you don't know anybody there, and ask for help before you think you need it. I think that's the biggest thing is don't get in over your head and not realize that those supports are there for you. And for the parents, I would say give your students some room to figure things out. Be there when they need you, but let them begin making some decisions on their own. Part of college is learning how to navigate life, not just earning a degree.
As a parent, that's kind of hard to hear, although my daughter's not anywhere near going to college yet, but.
For sure.
Yeah, no, I think that's good advice. And I want to ask another question that we were just talking before we started recording, kind of in a similar vein. And Susan, weigh in here too, because both of you all are Putnam County natives. I came to Tech from Sumner County, Goodlettsville area, so I was still sort of going away a little bit to college. But you all grew up here in this area and went to Tech, and there the greatest Putnam County is one of our greatest suppliers of Tech students. So obviously there are a lot of local students that go to Tech, but then you hear from some of these students who say, well, I've grown up in the area, and I just they want to know, can I still have a really rich student experience at Tech if I'm from the community? Is that going to feel like I never left home, or like just a continuation of high school? And we try to, I know we try to get that message to students that no, you can live on campus. You can, Tech in so many ways is sort of a community unto itself. But for either of you, what would you say to local students who wonder about that?
I think that's a huge piece of the message that we ran into, we tried to give to students and their families when I was in admissions, just talking to them about, coming to college locally is not going to be like your fifth year of high school. And that's what I used to hear from a lot of students. It's going to be like I'm just coming to another year of high school. It's not really. You look at the number of students in Putnam County that come to Tennessee Tech or choose to come to Tennessee Tech, 300-400 folks. There's 11,000 students on that campus. So when you get there, you're not going to be just running into your classmates and be in all the same classes that you were in high school. You're going to be doing different things. There's going to be different organizational opportunities out there. It's a completely different experience than when you were in high school together. You have students from across Tennessee, across the country, around the world, organizations, athletics, campus events, residence life, all those things that make up the college experience. So there's definitely more to it. I'm a graduate of Cookeville High School, and I chose to come to Tennessee Tech because I saw the value. Obviously it's been very good to me for my career, and I would not change that decision for anything.
Those are all incredible points, and I agree with everything. I am also a graduate of Cookeville High School, and so I heard all the time most of my friends went away to college. And I decided to stay here, which is the best decision I could have made for many reasons. But I moved into the dorms. I moved out immediately from my parents' house and moved into the dorms, and I joined organizations. I got involved, to the points that you made earlier about the importance of getting involved. And even though I literally grew up a few blocks from Tennessee Tech, I wouldn't even know it, except that I did go home to do laundry sometimes. But other than that, I fully immersed myself in the college experience, and I wouldn't have known that I grew up there and that my parents were still just a few blocks away. But it was such a great experience for me, and it changed my life. My life would be completely different had I gone somewhere else, obviously. But I am doing what I do today because of the education and the experience, the overall experience from Tech. And being from Cookeville did not impact that negatively in any way.
Yeah, well, I love hearing that. I think that's good advice for local students. Frank, I've been eager to ask you about another really interesting part of your resume, and that is your years as a middle school chorus teacher. And I would just think that is a role that requires a lot of patience. Susan and I talked to Sam Brooks a while ago when another time you were guest hosting, Susan, and we talked to him about doing high school driver's ed. I don't know. I think being a middle school music teacher that may require an even greater level of patience. And yes. I'm speaking only for myself, but I was at my worst at that point in my life, I think. So what do you remember from that time in your career? And knowing that middle schoolers can be a bit unpredictable, is there a particular class meeting or concert performance that stands out to you?
Holy cow! Facts on all that. So definitely middle school students, they will keep you humble, and it's a you never know exactly what's going to happen next, minute to minute, let alone day to day. So that was one of the things, that I saw regularly was just they keep you on your toes. They're great to be around. They bring a lot of energy on a daily basis. And I think the biggest thing I remember and I appreciated was just the relationship building. And, you have your core instructional teachers, English, math, science, which are hugely important and impact the academics of these students on a daily basis. But your 7th grade English teacher has them for 7th grade. Your freshman math teacher has them for freshman year. The place that I appreciated was as their music teacher, I got to be with them in 5th grade, in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and on into high school for some of those because I transitioned over to be the high school chorus teacher as well. So, those relationships built over those years, you start seeing that 5 years later, 10 years later, 15 years later, even when you're running into those students in town and they like, hey, Mr. Tittle, I remember when we did this in class or we did this musical performance or this concert or this trip to X location. It was just that's a great feeling. And then they talk about events or things that happened that you hadn't thought about in 15 years. And then you start remembering back and just really appreciate that. And I think that's probably one of the greatest things about being an educator. You don't always realize the impact you're having while you're in the middle of it. And it comes and shows itself at different times later on.
As one of those kids who was in the choir, the choral program, and the theater program, I completely agree that it's special to have that relationship, and it does continue for your whole life.
And you did the chorale at
I did,
Tech,
yes,
Susan. Yeah.
yes. So it was your degree in music education.
It was.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I didn't know that. So learning things, but yes. So I was in the chorale. I was one of the non-majors. I was never a music major in any way, ever. But I did participate in chorale, so I'm a big fan of choral organizations.
I should have asked the two of y'all to do a duet as part of this podcast.
Next time.
We'll see. Hey, I will give a plug on that since you said you were a non-major out there.
Yes.
For any students and parents who are listening, there are scholarships for students on Tennessee Tech's campus for non-majors within the music department.
Yes.
So just a sidebar there that presented itself. I would tell you, check into that if you do have that musical capacity, whether it's instrumental or vocal. Definitely check into that with the music department on campus.
That is a great point. I was the recipient of one of those non-major scholarships, so it is fantastic that opportunity exists. Yes. All right, so now it's time for our rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and you just tell me the first thing that comes to mind. Favorite place on Tennessee Tech's campus?
I would say the quad, no question on that. For me, that is just the epitome of what you would think about when you're thinking about a college campus visit. And, what you see on TV portrayed too. You see that nice green space, you see the trees lining that area, and then just to have Derryberry at the end of the quad with the clock tower there, it's just a great feel and a great space to be in for sure.
All right, the biggest difference between K-12 education and higher education?
For me, in the experience that I've had in the K-12 side and the higher ed would be just the age of the students. I mean, the surprising thing is the challenges are actually more similar than people think. I know in high school, one of the things that was always an issue was attendance as far as being tardy and students not wanting to get to class exactly on time. Those are some of the same things I would hear from advisors and professors, that's about students showing up right on time to class and everything. So, little things like that. I know that's a minor example, but really it's just the age. There's not huge differences there.
Finish this sentence. Cookeville's best kept secret is...
I would say, for me, local artists and that craft. For sure, as far as musicians and things like that, there are a lot of great musicians that are in this area. Andrew Buckner is absolutely wonderful to go and listen to. My wife and I try and go hear him as much as possible. And then Spoonful is another great band that's a local band. Some of my friends that I went to high school with are in that group. So one of them actually works in OCM. So Danny Birdwell, I'll give him a little plug there.
Wait,
but
I didn't know Danny was a musician.
Oh, he is. He's wonderful. That group is really great.
Idea.
Yep. And then Dawn Crabtree's husband's also in that group as well. So a couple folks on our campus there that have a relation to that local artistry. Two, I would say your visual arts people, some of the things that are on display at the Craft Center or at the, the Senior Citizen Building, or they're on campus as well. Just so local artists, I think, are a hidden gem in our area.
Thank you so much for saying that. I completely agree. And I am a little biased. My sister is an incredible local artist here, graduate of tech and a local artist. But we have such a great music and fine arts scene here.
Definitely.
So I appreciate you saying that. Okay. And finally, a job that you might have pursued if you didn't work in education.
Great question. So when I first started Tennessee Tech, I was in ROTC at Tech. And so my father was 24 years military person. And I think that was in my head, that was where I was headed. And then when I switched over to music, that just kind of went by the wayside. And I think that would have been my next choice, obviously, if I haven't changed and be an educator. So there is always that. My wife and I have that discussion all the time, the whole what if situation of if I'd have been in that space instead of this space.
Well, and ROTC celebrates their 75th anniversary this year. So that's
I think at the September Board of Trustees meeting, I think they're going to have some students from ROTC
Wonderful.
to commemorate that. So that'll be that's a timely answer. Well, finally, Frank, we like to end each interview on this podcast with the same question. What is one way that Tennessee Tech has impacted your life?
Great question. So for me, Tennessee Tech, I'll go back to the ROTC piece. Tennessee Tech has really been part of my life since the day I was born. My dad taught ROTC at Tech in the 70s when I was born here in Cookeville. And, we moved away for a little while, but then we came back in the 80s, and my mom started working at Tennessee Tech, and she worked in payroll and personnel for 20 years. So she worked in Derryberry there. And I can remember walking every day from when I went to the junior high, where Foundation Hall is now, walking from the junior high over to my mom's office and just spending time there after school. A lot of days I'd go to the music library, sit there and listen to records until she got off work. And then I eventually became a student here at Tennessee Tech, earned a couple degrees, and then came back to, after teaching for 20 years, came back to work in admissions, eventually became the director of admissions, and then, moving on to the Gear Up program where I'm at now. So when you ask how Tennessee Tech has impacted my life, I think it's hard for me to separate tech from my life. And this campus has been a part of my story from the very beginning. And at this point in my career, I really can't imagine a better place to eventually finish my career than right here on this campus.
I'm listening to you say that, and I'm realizing when you were the admissions director, you had a lot of meetings in Foundation Hall, and that was probably kind of a trip to go back to your old middle school for all those meetings.
For sure, I think about that all the time when I'm over there in that building. So that's yep.
Yeah. Well, Frank, thanks so much for being our guest today on College Town Talk.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity.
And for our listeners, if you're enjoying our show and hearing from Golden Eagle alumni leaders like Dr. Frank Tittle, would you please do us a favor and leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get this podcast? It all helps to spread the word about the great things happening right here in Cookeville.
Hey, I want to thank Susan Luna-Hazlewood for guest co-hosting these last 2 weeks. Next week, we are welcoming back Shan Stout, and we hope to see you right here for more conversations with the people who make Cookeville Tennessee's college town. College Town Talk is presented by Tennessee Tech University in partnership with the Cookeville-Putnam County Convention and Visitors Bureau and Stonecom Radio. Your hosts are Jonathan Frank and Shan Stout, and original music is performed by Andrew Buckner. Visit us online at tntech.edu/collegetowntalk.